This video deals with classification of information assets. Logical steps for classification of information assets. Please note, they are very important from CISA exam point of view. You can expect at least 1 or 2 questions on these steps. So, what is the first one? It's to have the inventory of information assets. So once you are ready with the inventory, you need to establish ownership for each information assets. Once ownership is being ready, then data owner will help you to classify the resources, whether it's critical, sensitive, public, private. Once classification done, you need to label that particular information assets. So after labeling, your last step is creation of access control list. So for example, who can access the sensitive data, who can access the private data, who can access the public data. Let us discuss what should be our answer in following scenario. So when CISA question objective is about ultimate responsibility for defining access role, our answer should be data owner. Similarly, when accountability for maintenance of proper security controls over the information assets is being asked, your answer should be data owner. So data owner, system owner, they are the ultimate responsible or accountable for maintenance of appropriate access control for their respective data and processes. Now, objective of classification of information assets. So our answer should be in following preferences. So first preference to be given to ensure integrity, confidentiality of the data. Second, to establish appropriate access control guidelines. And third one, reduction in cost of protecting assets. First step in classifying the assets, that is inventory of information assets. This is the basic requirement for any classification of assets. Let us discuss CISA questions. For appropriate data classification, the most important requirement is knowledge of technical controls, awareness and training about organizational policies, use of automatic data control tools, understanding the requirements of data user. Please note, most important requirement for appropriate data classification policy is awareness and training about the organizational policies and standards. So data owners should be aware about what are the policies in the standards, what is critical assets, what are sensitive assets, what are public assets, and what are private assets. So once this is being known, he will able to classify data as per organization's requirement. Let us discuss some questions. Responsibility for the maintenance of proper control measure over information resources resides with the A, B, C, D. We already discussed. When CISA question objective is about responsibility or accountability, our answer should be data and system owners. One more question. An IS auditor is evaluating data classification policy of an organization. The first step in data classification is 2. So, we already discussed what are the steps of classification of information assets. First step is inventory, second is ownership, third one is classification, fourth is labeling, and fifth one is access control. So, here inventory is not there in our option. So, our answer should be second step, that is the establish ownership. Which of the following is the most important objective of classification of information assets? We need to remember, whenever question is about objective of classification of information assets, our first preference should be data integrity. Second will be to establish appropriate access control guidelines, and third one be for the reduction in cost of protecting the assets. So in the given question, our answer should be ensuring the integrity of information. So here, an IS auditor is evaluating access control policy of an organization. The implementation of access control first requires, so same thing. A similar step will be there. Inventory, ownership, classification, labeling, and access control. So our answer will be inventory of information system resources. Proper classification and labeling of system resources are important for access control because they A, B, C, D. So our answer should be B. Proper classification and labeling for system resources are important for the efficient administration of security controls. Proper classification and labeling does not necessarily ensure option A, C, and D. So, this classification and labeling will reduces the number of rules required to adequately protect resources, which in turn help security administration and maintenance efforts. In coordination with database administrator, granting access to data is the responsibility of. So, we already discussed. Whenever responsibility and accountability comes, your answer should be data owners. Reviewing data classification policy of an organization from a control perspective, primary objective of classifying information assets is to. So whenever objective of classification of information assets are there in question, your first preference should be to ensure integrity, your second preference should be to establish appropriate access control, and your third one will be reduction is cost of protecting the data. So in our question, first preference is not there. So your answer should be establish appropriate access control guidelines. From control perspective, access to application data should be given by data owner. These type of questions are repeatedly asked in CISA exam. An IS auditor is reviewing access control policy of an organization. Which of the following is responsible for authorizing access rights to production data and system? So our answer should be data owner. An IS auditor is reviewing access control policy of an organization. Which of the following is the best basis for determining the appropriate levels of information resource protection? Classification, data owner, threat assessment, and cost of information assets. So our answer in such scenario will be classification of information assets. Classification of information assets on the basis of its criticality and sensitivity provide the best basis for assigning the levels for information resource protection. So if it's a public document, it may not be protected, but it's a sensitive or critical document, it requires multiple level of controls. An IS auditor is reviewing access control policy of an organization. Which of the following is the best basis for determining the appropriate levels of information resource protection? Classification, data owner, threat assessment, and cost of information assets. So our answer in such scenario will be classification of information assets. Classification of information assets on the basis of its criticality and sensitivity provide the best basis for assigning the levels for information resource protection. So if it's a public document, it may not be protected, but it's a sensitive or critical document, it requires multiple level of controls. Thanks for watching. For more such video, please visit datainfosec.com.